So, Germany, the Christmas market. And what we have is little pieces of information which beg more questions, right? And I'll go through what I've seen, right? And again, I don't know. I can only go on what I've seen. Take the pieces of information that I've read about this instance, wrap that in the context of what's going on in Europe over the last few decades, and then you can even extend that out to what's going on regionally in the world and globally, right? So we'll start with what I've seen. I've seen a car plough into what looks like maybe a couple of hundred people. As far as I've heard, I've seen 2 deaths, 5 deaths, 6 deaths, 11 deaths, and scores of people injured, right? And if you see the video, like it's two seconds long maybe. Carnage. And the death toll may rise, right? Because there could be complications with medical reactions and medical responses to the people that were injured, right? But be that as it may, the man who was arrested, and number one, right? So you have the newspaper, the regular media, right? And the headlines are to neuter an anticipated emotional reaction to the story itself, right? And that is done by starting the sentence with a noun, a thing, right? Car hits people at Christmas market, driver arrested. So the emphasis is immediately put onto the car, which is total nonsense, right? And only at the end then do they introduce to your perception or introduce to the equation the driver, right? So cars are just running rogue and just taking people out. And you see we've seen a similar thing in America. At the time, there was another fella done the exact same thing, right? It was a parade or something, I think, and he plowed into scores of people. And you've seen the same idea. Car hits crowd, right? So I would suggest this, and I hope for this, right? That people in the media who are writing stories in that way, they had to sit down and, okay, maybe they didn't sit down and think about how to construct the heading. Maybe it was given to them, right? But either way, they typed it, they wrote it, they sent it to the editor, and they printed it, right? And they put their name under it. This is pure deception. It's also being part of these monolithic media outlets. It's a pretty significant job. Like, you have a significant sway and influence over people's perception of the world. You colour it to a large degree, particularly in Ireland, right? So I would suggest that anybody who's responsible for these deceptive, we all know it when we see these deceptive headlines, they should be struck off, right? Because I truly believe 1 or 2 instances you go sloppy. But we have years and years and years of these people omitting the truth, omitting certain facts, colouring people's perspectives in a specific way, a political way, an ideological way. That is propaganda. And they should be held to account. Similarly, the way there was media, journalists, whatever you want to call them, propagandists, who were tried at Nuremberg, right? Same should apply. And I would suggest, as a serious nation, if we don't have laws that can get these people for what they've been doing, we should create those laws. Am I sounding like a total demagogue and a tyrant? Absolutely. Because the mess that we're in is facilitated and allowed to grow and spread based on the limitless application of the law and morality that we're living in this society, right? So that's the media, these guys. The driver then, again, I'm just given what I've read. I have read that he is a Saudi refugee who came to Germany in the 2010s. And he was being persecuted in Saudi Arabia, so he fled and landed in Germany, right? How that works, I don't know, right? But here we are. He then set up a website to try and help other Saudis or other people from war-torn countries or countries where they're persecuted to come to Germany as well, right? He is self-proclaimed ex-Muslim, as far as I understand it. And even more so, he has been posting pro-Israeli sentiment things, right? Messages and posts and Twitter things, right? So on the surface, it looks like you have this guy he's an infidel, right? He walked away from Islam. He's an ex-Muslim. He has been involved with bringing Muslims into Germany, maybe ex-Muslims into Germany. And he's been posting pro-Israeli things. I've also seen one or two posts saying that this guy has, I'd say, a soft spot, an allegiance. He has been endorsing the AfD, the German party, right? The political party in Germany that is pro-German. And the nonsense of even having to say that, right? So you have political parties in Germany that are not pro-German. Same way you have it in Ireland. Irish political parties that are openly against Irish people. So, is the guy an ex-Muslim? Maybe. Is he a Muslim practicing taqiyya, which is well explained, explicitly stated, but also explicitly stated in terms of how it's defined, right? And that it is a tenet of Islamic religion and Islamic, what would you even call it? The extortion racket of Islam, right? And taqiyya is, it is permitted to lie and to be deceiving or to be deceptive of the kafir, the non-Muslim. And you're allowed to do that if it promotes the expansion, the solidification, and the growth of the Islamic ideology. So you're permitted to do that. And what that says on the surface of it is you must take each thing with a grain of salt that you hear from Muslims. You simply have to, because you're being respectful and consistent with their doctrine by taking everything they say with a pinch of salt, by not buying it wholesale, right? You don't have to, according to their own doctrine. When you're in the jihad or spreading the faith, it is permissible to engage in acts of deception and treacherous talk, right? It is okay to do that because your lies allow for the growth of Islam. So is he a Muslim, an ex-Muslim who walked away from the religion? Perhaps. Is he a still practicing Muslim who's engaged in taqiyya, who's engaged in deception? And this deception might be proclaiming he's an ex-Muslim and proclaiming that he has support for Israel, right? Or even that he is supporting the pro-German parties over in Germany. Cui bono, right? Who benefits? Would Israel benefit from this guy doing what he did under the name of being pro-Israel? No, they wouldn't at all, right? They wouldn't. Would the pro-German parties benefit from this? They wouldn't. Would Islam benefit from a practicing Muslim engaged in taqiyya, being deceptive about what his affiliations are, and promoting or pretending that he's a pro-Israeli or that he's pro-German party, right? Islam would benefit from that. Have we got evidence of any of this? We have, call it, I suppose, circumstantial, but we haven't, not even circumstantial. We have the MO. This is not the first time that Christmas market has been attacked by vehicles in Germany or in Europe, even in America. So we see a similar MO from this guy. And it's bizarre to me how anyone would pick up the line that this guy is an advocate for pro-German political parties in Germany while mowing down German people at a Christmas market. You can't square that circle for me, right? Does it make sense that he is a pro-Israeli who might do that? I don't know. Could you cite some sort of historical revenge, maybe? Maybe you could, right? Or is it more fitting that this guy is a practicing Muslim who's engaged in taqiyya and deception, and the MO that he decided to act out or to utilize was the exact same MO that we've seen countless times over the years in Europe, right? So that's it. That's what I'm after gathering from that. What do you think of it? And I will add this one thing to that. Whether people want to accept this or not, we have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of terrorist attacks across Europe. Even in Ireland. They might not call it that. But we have a specific group of people. And each nation, each peoples are allowed to come up with their own ideology, and they're allowed to advocate for themselves. But the thing is, if you're in, I suppose you've 5% of a population of your people, right, on foreign soil, are you going to openly declare war? Probably not, because you get squashed. So you practice it. What is the Islamic thing? The be aggressive in times of peace and be peaceful in times of war, that sort of thing, right? So you would grow and expand. You would engage in acts of sabotage, of terrorism, right? Mass murder in this instance. But you'd also wish that, or you'd aim to take the limelight off of the ideology that you're promoting. Because you don't want to out yourself too much. Because you're cowardly by nature, right? And I suppose if you're looking at it in terms of warfare, you're being tactical about it. It's a smart move. It's a smart move. And it's only a smart move insofar as the native population continue to accept that these lone wolves, who tend to come from these same ideologies, either totally, and the right-wing, left-wing thing, right, it's useful to use because people tend to understand it loosely. But you have lunatics who believe, whatever the colour of their creed, right, or the ideology, they've come to the belief that Western civilization is evil. It is totally oppressive. It is destroying their hope of a utopic future, and it needs to be deconstructed and destroyed. And you have these two groups who, on the surface, you look and go, they're totally antagonistic to each other, but they're not, because the main driving force in these groups is the destruction of Western civilization, which meaning the castrating and disempowering, if not total eradication of Western people. And then you have this other force that's just walking along. This force welcomes in this one. This wants to destroy what's there. This one wants to control what's left, right? So you've both of these groups using each other and working together, whether they're in agreement of it or not. They are really, right? So the blood of all of this stuff is on these stupid university students who have accepted every single nonsense critique, deconstruction, French philosophy that their lecturers have given to them, because it's the only philosophical position their lecturers have given to them, because it's probably the only philosophical position that these lecturers have learnt in their time in university. It's the only thing they study, and it's rotten to the core. It's entirely negative in its ontology, in its metaphysics, right? The aim of it is to deconstruct and destroy something. It doesn't offer anything in its place. It's entirely negative, right? So if that job is fulfilled, waiting in the wings here, you just happen to have this theocratic thing, this theocratic force that wants to impose its will and its own ideology onto everybody. And you don't have to convert, but you can pay a tax to stay non-converted, right? Is that what you want? Is that what you want? Because that's where we're heading, and this is my last point on this. Whether people want to accept it or not, there is a pretty significant population in this world that wants to spread this corrosive ideology. And it's doing it in your cities. It's doing it in your towns. It's doing it in your countries. And it's doing it to your family members and friends and cousins and kids and nephews, right? People in your neighborhoods. There's people in European countries who are adopting this ideology. Or both these ideologies, right? So whether you want to accept it or not, and I would suggest that the quicker you accept it, the easier your life is going to be and will continue to be. Because you can prepare for it. But it's coming. It's coming. And you might sit on the rock in the middle of the sea that we are and say that will never happen in Ireland. It has. It has already. The only reason you don't believe it didn't happen in Ireland already is because the media told you it's not what it looks like, guys. Not what it looks like. Right? Kids butchered in the streets. Not what it looks like. Children beheaded in Wexford. Not what it looks like. Men beheaded. Right? Homosexual men beheaded because they're homosexual in Ireland. Not what it looks like, lads. That never happened here. Right? So it's coming. So if you're going to be out and around, don't be dawdling. Right? Keep your head in a swivel. Be wary of the fact that these things could happen at any given moment. And that's the least you have to do as an adult, as a man in Ireland, is be prepared for this. Because it might be this Christmas, it could be next Christmas, but it's here. It's already happening. Right? So, those are the thoughts. And crazy, so there's probably hundreds, if not thousands of people this Christmas that have, not just Christmas, but their lives have just been destroyed because of some lunatic, ideologically possessed, probably has never had a thought of his own in his whole life. And Germany, the government, disgusting governments that they've had, same with Ireland, have just welcomed these people in. Right? And I've seen as well, it's funny, because you get the far right are totally wrong here because he was an ex-Muslim. Right. So, far right simply being native European populations that want to protect and maintain their own existence on Europe and their home soil, and are anti any ideology that's opposed to that. Why wouldn't you be? Common sense. Strict instincts, biological instincts, right? Biological truths. So they'll say the natives who wish to have their own power in their own country, right? The far right. They're wrong on this because the guy was an ex-Muslim. From Saudi Arabia, all right, but he was an ex-Muslim. Fair enough. If that's true, that takes the Muslim card off the table. What are you left with then? You're still left with the racial makeup of this person. So just so happens then is you have Muslims who've been doing this, driving vehicles into people. And now you also have an Arab or a Middle Eastern man who's not a Muslim anymore doing the exact same thing. So which one do you want? Do you want the Islamic justification for this? Or do you want the racial justification for this? Because either way, there's a serious, serious problem here.